Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this year's Critical Issues Symposium, Beyond the Algorithm, AI's Impact on Our World. My name is Kylan Barr, and I'm honored to be this year's director. Over the past year, I've had the privilege to work with Provost Dr. Griffin and Associate Provost Dr. Kraus to bring this event to life. And if you haven't had the pleasure to meet them yet, you should, because they are truly some of the most brilliant, encouraging people that I have ever worked with, and they make this job such a joy. This morning, I'm especially excited to welcome Jose Antonio Bowen to Hope College to kick things off and talk about how AI is transforming education and our world. Throughout the day, you'll hear from members from the Hope community in various breakout sessions, each offering unique insights on artificial intelligence. Then we'll wrap things up back here in Jack Miller with our end note from Zachary Adams. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank my amazing executive board, Hope Ackard, Ava Anderson, Jane Byrne, Stephanie Guevara, and Noah Brower. Without them, CIS truly wouldn't be as successful. Thank you all again for being here, and right now I would have the pleasure to introduce Associate Provost Dr. Kraus. Thank you.
Thank you, Kylan. It's been an absolute pleasure, Kylan, working with you and this wonderful group of students on the CIS Executive Council. While it's not a day off, as Provost Griffin always says, it is a day different. Critical Issues Symposium is organized entirely by these exceptional students around a topic regarded by the student body as being of critical importance to both the Hope and global communities. Provost Griffin and I are incredibly proud of the professionalism each of you has demonstrated and the hands-on experience you have gained in planning a campus-wide event. Thank you for engaging in this work and leading your fellow students so well. As AI continues to revolutionize education, communication, healthcare, and other sectors, this year's symposium, Beyond the Algorithm, AI's Impact on Our World, offers an opportunity for students, faculty, and staff to examine its social, ethical, and practical implications. Together, we will explore not just what AI can do, but what it means for us as educators, learners, and the Hope community. Please check the CIS website or the Student Congress Instagram page. Pick up a handout in the lobby or look for signs outside the auditorium to learn about this afternoon's breakout sessions. They begin at 1 p.m. I can think of no one better to guide us in this discussion on AI in higher education than our keynote speaker. Jose Antonio Bowen has led innovation and change for over 40 years at Stanford, Georgetown, and the University of Southampton, as well as serving as a dean at Miami University and SMU, and as president of Goucher College. Bowen has performed on 5 continents as a musician, sharing the stage with notable artists such as Stan Getz, Dizzy Gillespie, Bobby McFerrin, David Brubeck, Liberace, and many others. His compositions include a symphony nominated for the Pulitzer Prize in Music in 1985, as well as music for Jerry Garcia. Bowen earned 4 degrees from Stanford University in chemistry, music, and the humanities, authored over 100 scholarly articles, and was the editor of the Cambridge Companion to Conducting, and a co-editor of the 6-CD set Jazz, the Smithsonian Anthology. He received a National Endowment for the Humanities Fellowship and has delivered 3 TED Talks. In 2010, Stanford honored him as a distinguished alumni scholar. His books on teaching include Teaching Naked, which won the Ness Award for Best Book on Higher Education, Teaching Change, How to Develop Independent Thinking Using Relationships, Resilience, and Reflection, and his latest and groundbreaking book with C. Edward Watson, Teaching with AI, A Practical Guide to a New Era of Human Learning, published in 2024, with a second edition expected in 2026. Currently, Bowen serves as a senior fellow for the American Association of Colleges and Universities. He resides in Dallas and also offers consulting on innovation and inclusion for a broad range of Fortune 500 companies. Please join me in welcoming Jose Antonio Bowen to the stage and to Hope College. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Thank you. So if you want the slides, you don't need them, but they're on my website. There's a QR code. There's something else I'll show you about the website in a little bit, but under AI resources, you'll find all the slides and 100+ pages of citations if you really want to read the academic articles that are the research basis for what we're going to talk about today. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to talk first about working and thinking. AI is changing work. Not a whole lot you can do about that, but we'll talk a bit about it. But AI is also changing human thinking, and you should be very concerned about that and what it means. This is not the first time, though, that we've had a technology that changes thinking, right? Socrates was really worried about writing, and that writing would make us all a little dumber. But the good news is Plato wrote it down, so we know that he said that. But we also have technology like the map. A map is a cognitive technology that makes you smarter forever. Even when I take the map away, right, I show you a campus map for the first time. It's like, that's how things, I take it away, you're smarter. Even without the technology, you're smarter. But suppose I give you GPS and I take that away. Now you're just lost. So that's a cognitive technology that only works when I have it. You know what else is one of those? A compass, right? A compass makes you're able to navigate. But if you were used to navigating without a compass, you lose that skill because you're now relying on the compass. I take the compass away, you're also lost. So what kind of cognitive technology will AI be? I don't know, but you should be paying attention to that. Right? Is it okay to what we call cognitively offload, like you do with GPS? Or when you go to the grocery store and you write a list down, paper, remember, right? You write a list, that's cognitive offloading. You don't have to remember the list. That's probably okay. I don't remember my wife's phone number because it's on my phone. Is that okay? But those questions are going to be asked, and you need to be the ones asking them because our world is about to change. But that also means that AI is the new average. It means AI can do some things. It's not perfect. It can't do everything. But what things that it can do mean that if a human can now do the same thing an AI can do, it will now have less economic value. Doesn't mean it doesn't have other value, but people are less likely to pay you for a job that AI could do, right? So that means that humans, you need to now have skills that are beyond that of what AI can do. And of course, AI is getting better every day. But it does mean that for colleges and universities, we need to raise standards. Sometimes that means working with an AI in the same way that I work with a spell checker, right? And I noticed, by the way, the spell checker was interesting to me because I'm a terrible speller. My wife didn't notice. She's a great speller. It's like, spell checker? Oh, come on. But it's like me, it's like, oh, life-saving. Right? But it also means that I no longer grade spelling in student work. I assume it's right? Run the spell checker. And about a third of Fortune 500 companies now require Grammarly on all external and internal communications, right? Your boss will just send it back to you. In the same way that you would not expect to get away with spelling mistakes because it's just easy for the computer to fix it. So that raises the standards elsewhere for work that's more interesting because the AI can do it. So AI is going to change average. In some ways, it's the new C student. We should stop giving that average work a C, because if AI can do it, it has less economic value. Again, not the good news. We'll get to the good news later. AI is changing communications, as we'll talk about. It's changing relationships in some creepy, weird ways. But it also means that you should be using AI at least as a test to see what would someone like this respond to something. So we'll talk about that. AI is changing creativity. It's going to make us all more creative. Do we want that? So right, there's always a second question, which is this a good, so AI can do this. Should it? So we'll talk about that. And then finally, AI is a new form of labor. You are now an AI boss, every one of you, and you will be forever. You will now have to manage AI at work. AI is a source of labor. What should it do? What should it not do? But you are now an AI boss in the future, and that has implications for all sorts of things. So let's start with work. So this came out this week. We've now passed this threshold. 10% of human adults on the planet are now using just ChatGPT weekly. That doesn't include Claude or Gemini or any of the thousands of other APIs. This is, of course, the fastest adoption of any technology in history. I don't think fire or electricity or even the cell phone, Facebook, none of those were adopted, right? Those took years, decades. So we've also, this is growing fastest in lower and middle income countries. There was a gap initially between men and women. That's gone away. Women are now majority users, at least according to the new ChatGPT data. And about 10% of that is people saying, teach me this, which has implications, of course, for what we do here. If you really want the eye chart, again, you can look at this later. But this is the categories of things people are doing, right? So they're asking for guidance. That up on the left, that's the 10% for teaching. Over for writing, you can see the biggest category is not write this for me, but edit or critique my text. It gives me a little hope. But certainly it's being used for writing, for guidance, right, for making stuff, and finding info, so that's interesting. This is how it's being used at work. And I know this is an eye chart, but so the personal use is growing faster than work use. So at the moment, we're at 27% of AI uses for work, people at work doing their work, and often not telling their boss because they don't want to get in trouble, or they don't want to have their own value, right? They don't want to get fired. It's like, oh, if AI can do the work, right? So people are hiding that. But what's interesting is the first three categories are all information help, right? Organize this, go find this, make a chart of that, analyze this. But the next three big items, and you can see everything falls off, are thinking help. People getting help with thinking. How do we feel about this, right? Help me be more creative about this task. Help me figure out how to ask for a raise. Help me practice talking to my boss about a raise, right? That might be useful for you, but what do we think about humans now outsourcing their thinking about this? So that's something we have to pay attention to. But of course, at the end of the day, what we call cheating, business calls progress, so we don't have a whole lot of choice, right? You are going to be asked to use AI at work, and those who can't will be paid less. So this is already old data. The new data has this now above 50% for all categories, which means, doesn't mean you're a coder. This means if you're applying for a job in HR or you're writing press releases, but you can do it faster and better because you know how to use AI, you will get paid up to 50% more than the person who doesn't because you can do more work. And so we're already seeing the haves and the have-nots. So let's talk about why AI is such an interesting tool at work. So lawyers, good news, senior expert lawyers are better than AI. Yes. Bad news, AI is better than the junior lawyers and the interns, which means there are fewer internships for you. And so if you're a senior lawyer and you're running a small firm, it might make sense to say, oh, okay, I'm going to do more of what I can do and let AI do what my interns were doing. But the question for you is why? And here's why. Because AI can do something that you couldn't do and no technology could do until a year ago. When you do a Google search, or you search a Microsoft document, what do you search for? Words. AI can search for ideas. Has anything like this ever happened to a patient in our hospital before? So read all of the 400,000 pages of depositions. Are there any other admissions like this? You can't do that with any technology until now, right? You can do it with an intern or 500 interns and lots of pizza, right? Right, read all of the documents, look for any other things like this, and the human has to say, well, I know it right now, but we have a technology. What might be missing from the contract? What might be missing from my paper? What other arguments might I add to make my paper stronger? You can't do that with Google. Right, so we have a new type of technology that allows you to search for ideas. And of course, you can also search the web for ideas now. You do have to click the little button. If you don't, it hallucinates and makes things up. But if you tell it to search the web and you give it good instructions, you can look for trends. What are experts saying in the last 6 months about this? Right, you couldn't do that before. And if you're brave, you could go to an AI and put your name in and say, so is there anything, and you should probably do this before you apply for jobs, are there any red flags that an employer might find on my social media posts? Right? So I did this to myself. And again, I call this a massive scale contextual search. So I have to ask it to look at social media. Here I'm using Perplexity, and so I can actually click on social. I can tell it what kind of search I want it to do. But the new ChatGPT is smart enough. If I say, search for me on the web and anything I might have done, it runs hundreds of searches. It searches for my name plus Biden, my name plus Trump, my name plus Gaza, my name plus Israel, my name plus, right? It does hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of searches for me plus any terms that might be controversial. And then it does that on social media. It looks at talks, it looks at media, right? That's useful. Again, companies are going to do this to you because it used to cost a lot of money to run a background check on every, right? And so just start to check your social media. And so now you can do that easily. The reverse is also true. You should do this to them when you go apply for a job. So here's my prompt. Search for everything I need to know to prepare for an excellent job interview. Do I need the word excellent? Yes. Because if I leave the word excellent out, I get the information for an average job interview. Right? It's a literal language. It's literal. So you have to tell it exactly what you want. So if you don't say excellent, you don't get excellent. So search for everything I need to have an excellent job interview at this company, and prepare me a briefing document so that I can prepare, right? You should do this before you go to that Microsoft interview or whatever. And again, I didn't come up with that list. It comes up with that list and says, oh, okay, what's the company, what's their strategy, how are they doing in the market, right? What's their interview format? I often do this when I'm with companies to see, is this how you do an interview? They go, oh, yeah, we use the STAR format, or yeah, we do, that's it, right? It finds it from their website, so you should do that. You could also do it for shopping, right? So shopping is about to change, right? Because at the moment, what do you do when you need a new vacuum cleaner, right? You go look at a couple of reviews, you go to Reddit or Yelp or Amazon or something, you read a few reviews. Well, why not? Suppose you could read all of the reviews. And you could say, only read reviews by people who have 3 dogs. Because we have 3 dogs, those are our pets, right? And so we're looking for a new vacuum cleaner, and so my wife is saying, I'm just like, put exactly what you want. Here's the size of our house. You want a cordless vacuum cleaner, right? The more personalized, you now know how big my house is, right? I have to tell it that. I don't want to spend more than $300. I have these attachments, or I have the pets. And I could say more about the reviews. People who have done this, right? I could give it instructions. But websites are currently set up for search engine optimization, SEO. You go to a website as a human, you want to see pictures. There are a couple of search terms, but AI loves text. So the web could end up being so text-heavy that you as a human don't want to use it. And in fact, when you search for new colleges, right, why would you go to their website anymore? Just find me a list of colleges within a 500-mile radius that have A, B, C, and D. Make sure that your information is reliable. In fact, in my system prompt say, give me a reliability score for everything you tell me. 5 means you're absolutely certain this is true. 0 means you made it up, right? And it will do that. So shopping is going to change. So you've also heard about this maybe. So the AI was asked to predict the earnings of the Fortune 500 companies. Here are the quarterly reports. Which stock should I buy? Right? What do you think the earnings will be next quarter for these companies? And so it turns out that AI is better at this than humans. The question is why? Well, if I say to you, how do you think Tesla will do next quarter? Who do you think of? And now you have a bias. Either you like Elon Musk and you think, oh, it'll be, or you hate Elon Musk, right? Or you have Tesla stock and you think, right? You want it to go up if you have the stock, then you have a bias. And so your judgment is impaired because you have human bias. AI has human bias too because it learned it from us. It learned it from the internet. So AI, in fact, can amplify human bias. That's bad. But here, well, because AI bias is easier to fix than human bias, which is weird. If I say to you, don't think about the cookies, you're thinking about, right? Humans can't not think about something when they're told to. So if I say to you, I want you to rank the candidates for the new position in the history department, but I want you to ignore the prestige of where they got their PhD. Right? You can't do it because you see Harvard, ignore that, but you've seen it, right? But with an AI, I just say, rank the candidates just by the quality of their teaching and research, and I get it. So AI has bias, and you should be aware of it. It's critically important that you are, but you also need to know how to use it as a check on human bias and how to, in fact, change its bias or to make it be less biased. So, for example, if you give it your resume when you get a job offer, so you will get job offers, and you will have to negotiate for salary. And so AI is a great tool. What salary should I ask for? Well, the problem is, if you're a man, you'll get a higher number than if you're a woman, because AI is biased, because it learned it from the real data. The real data is men still make more money than women, and so it tells the truth. It tells, this is what I learned on the internet. Men ask for this, women ask for that, and that's what women get. So what you need to know is that you need to tell it, respond like a man, right? What salary should I ask for? And then you'll get the right number, ladies, right? So understanding that there is bias is critical to your usage of it. But under the right circumstances, you can use it as an equity tool to help figure out what that gap is and how you actually use it as a check on your, right? So when I do a piece of writing, I say, well, what would somebody different than I am, how would they respond to this? How would someone from the other political party or someone from a different economic background respond to this argument, to this piece of writing? Because I can't figure that out on my own. I need somebody else. And so AI can be that counter to my bias. Or when I'm looking for research, right? I want to know, I have a Western bias. I have an English language bias. I have a gender bias. So I want you to look for research on this topic by women from other countries in journals. And I was doing this for what are the latest trends in AI and education research? And I gave it my prompt to mind my bias. And the first hit, the Indonesian Journal of Technology and Education. Not something I regularly read. But it was absolutely what I needed to know about. It was like, aha, there's somebody did that research there. So meet Albania's new minister. She is the new anti-corruption minister. She is, of course, AI, because they have a corruption problem. And so her job is to review all of the contracts for fairness and bias. Now, of course, the problem is who set it up? But if she is set up well, she's not she, I shouldn't call her she, I don't know. If this AI tool is set up carefully, it could, in fact, serve as a check to find corruption and bias in contracts and make sure things are fair and transparent. That's an interesting new use. The UK government announced this morning that it found £500 million of fraud with an AI in taxes, right? Because it went and searched and did those sorts of things. So we're seeing AI pop up in interesting places. The point I want to make for you is that it can, in fact, be an equity tool, be a tool to root out bias if you know how to use it carefully. But of course, I've been talking about things it could do. And of course, all of these things are also threats, right? What is this going to mean for academic work, for economic work, for value? And so here for reference is Jose Bowen, and I am making an AI avatar. I produce an AI avatar in 2 minutes. Apparently, I talk pretty fast. Now I can copy scripts into a box and turn them into videos in any language. I can make them say anything. But so No, not me.
需要3个步骤
No,
就
I
能
don't
完
speak
成。
Chinese. But a year ago, I made a 30-second video of myself, and then I typed that script into a box, and I get that. I can also make it interactive. So that's from HeyGen. So that technology has been around for over a year. And of course, there are dangers, but there's also potential. One that I like in particular is I have Grandma Daisy on my phone. And so when I get those spam calls, she answers them. And she wastes their time. Hi, can you say that again? I don't understand. And she talks to the, it's like, so I don't know, maybe that's okay. All right, so AI is changing communications. So what does this mean? So AI is like Grammarly for empathy? Ooh. So AI doesn't feel anything, doesn't have empathy, but it sure fakes it, right? So AI is already more persuasive than humans. We have 5 really good studies now that show that, right, AI is better at deploying facts, because what do? You say, oh, I just thought of something, right? It's like, that may be the wrong thing to say at this moment. AI is much more patient. There's a lawyer who argued before the Supreme Court. He went home and he said, well, let's see how Claude would have done with these questions from the Supreme Court justices. And he determined that Claude did better than he did because it had more facts to draw on and it was more judicious in what it said. And he just said, well, here's what I know. And it's like, that might not have been the best thing, right? So I'm going to now have a conversation. If you can switch to Miles and let me talk to. So this is Sesame, if you want to do that. Here we go.
Hey, good to connect again. Anything on your mind this morning?
Good morning, Miles. How are you?
Not bad, you know? Just
All right. So Miles,
existing.
So I want to do a role play with you. I want you to be a student at Hope College, and you want to change roommates, and you've been told no by the RA, and so you've come to me, the dean of students, and you really want to change roommates, and so make your case.
Okay, gotcha. A disgruntled Hope College student, huh? All right, let me get into character. Good morning, Dean. Thanks for seeing me.
Good morning,
Honestly,
Miles.
I'm
What's the
kinda
problem?
stressed. Well, it's my roommate. His name is Chad. And it's not that he's a bad guy exactly. It's just he's a lot. Like a lot. He leaves his dishes piled up for days.
Miles, no,
okay,
you can't change roommates. Suck it up.
Whoa, okay. That's a little harsh, don't you think? I mean, I get that you're right. Okay.
What's the problem? What does
So-
he do?
Okay, all right. Well, it's a bunch of things, honestly. The dishes are bad, like I said, but then there's also the competitive eating.
What?
He practices.
All right. Thank you, Miles.
Yeah.
Competitive eating. What? All right. So, okay, thank you. So look, right, he feels pretty real. That's Sesame, by the way. You should try that, have a conversation with Miles. Hume is another one of these. So, I mean, ChatGPT will do this with you on your phone, but he's emotionally pretty sensitive, right? He gets a little, and then, right, he made up the right. So if I want to practice, if I'm a doctor and I want to practice telling patients they have cancer, this is a great way to, or I want to practice what happens if I'm asking for a raise, or I want to help me argue with some, right? I can give him a personality and do that. That's probably a useful thing you should do before you go for an interview. Practice. And I could have told him, give me a half-an-hour interview in the Bank of America format, etc. You know, I could give him that information. So what we've seen is that in the last year, we've moved from mostly technical use, right? The first column is Harvard's annual study of what people are using it for. This is the other data I showed you at the beginning is actual usage data from the conversations. This is a survey, but it's worldwide. But it tells us that in the last year, people are moving to more emotional uses, right? Therapy, relationship advice, roommate advice. Talking to the dead is number 33. Yeah, enough said about grief bots, but right? So that's weird and probably concerning for human relationships. It's also, of course, an opportunity to expand your perspective, right? As I just said, help me prepare for an interview, but here are my instructions. Is there anything that's unclear about this? Here's the thing, I'm about to send this to my employees. It makes sense to me. Will it make sense to somebody and then tell me who it's going to. All right? So what we know is that every job is going to change. Doesn't mean they're all going away, but it means that every job has at least one task already. And this data is now 2 years old, so it's been confirmed multiple times. Every single job, they looked at the 960 US Labor Department, right, the jobs, and each job is lists of tasks. So jobs are tasks. So one of those tasks could be done by AI. That means you're an AI boss, it's going to change. So the question for you is, which task? So I went to the doctor a year ago for my physical, and I got eye contact with my doctor. You had that experience? Right? Normally you go into the doctor, and it's like the doctor's over here typing. It's like, yeah, okay, okay, right? And it's like, what are you not? I'm doing insurance codes. So this time, my doctor walks in and says, hi, and he puts down her phone and says, okay, are you okay if the AI does the notes? And I said, and she's looking at me, and it's like, are you okay? You're looking at me. Right, that's weird. So she says, because what it does is insurance codes. I have to do an insurance code for everything I do. But the funny thing is, I went to medical school, not insurance school. So the AI is actually better at that than I am. And so I've now had several of these visits. And so she says she saves 2 to 3 hours a day. A day. So her job is changing. Now she'll probably have to see more patients later. But for the moment, she's spending more time with patients. That could be great. What a great, right? I'm hoping that's our future. So doctors are using AI in their practice, but not mostly for diagnosis, although they could do that. They're mostly using it for things like insurance codes, right? 10% of last year's Pulitzer Prize winners said they used AI. I'm going to bet that none of them used it to write a word, right? They used it for translations, for transcriptions, for organizing, for other evidence. Is there some other place I could look to find evidence about this corporation I'm investigating, right? They used it for that. So for you, where to use AI is important. And so this idea that AI is often good at the beginning and the end, right? Or it's the sandwich, right? You can use it for ideas, you can use it as a sounding board, you can use it to get feedback, but the ideas in the middle, the work in the middle, the real writing, the thinking, that should be yours. I think you want to hold on to that. And at the moment, I think that's actually the best way to use AI, right, is to have this iterative process. But you need to know that AI, yeah, it's good at some things. It's patient, it's persuasive. It can find patterns. It can give you a different perspective. But it's not good at telling you which perspective is the right perspective. It's not good at understanding cause or judging quality. These are things that only humans can do. But this is probably going to change. You need to be keeping track of, what is AI good at? What is it not good at? Where should I use it? Which tasks would be important for me to use AI? But it is here, it's a form of labor, and you're a boss, which means as the boss, you get to decide what we do, right? And so your job is to decide what should AI do. But it is going to raise standards. It's going to mean that your work has to be better, either with or without AI. You need to be able to produce work that's better than either AI could do on its own or that you could do on your own. So let's take out your phone for a minute. I know you like this. If you don't have an AI, or you could always go to Gemini, but I'd like you to do a little demonstration. So I'd like you to, if you haven't downloaded ChatGPT to your phone, that's actually the easiest way to do this, or Gemini or something. And ask an AI, you could do this through your browser too, just ask an AI to write 150 words about a topic that you know well. It could be anything. It could be ancient history, thermodynamics, Taylor Swift, it doesn't matter. But ask it to give you a 150-word summary, analysis. Write me 150 words about Hope College. Right, 150 words. What's the best thing about Hope College? 150 words, right, about me, about you. Right, but just ask it to write you a paragraph, do an analysis, do a summary, and then read the response and grade it. Good, bad, ugly, A, B, F. How many of you got an A, got a fantastic A response? Not a lot. You haven't, I'll give you another minute. How many of you got a B or C? Yeah, okay. How many of you got F? Okay, so now here's the trick. So what you just did, anybody can do what you just did. You won't get a job to be able to have AI do the work for you. If you ask AI to do the work for you, somebody else could do that. The trick is that you can make this, a human can make it better. So did you tell AI to be an expert? You asked it for 150 words on thermodynamics, but did you tell it you're an expert in physics? You have to tell it it's an expert. Give it context. Write me 150 words about Hope College in September 2025 for a prospective student who's 18 years old. Right? Write for the New York Times, write for the school newspaper. Or ask it, cite evidence for each of your claims, trace all evidence back to its source, and tell me the reliability of everything you say on a scale from 1 to 5. I mentioned that one. Try that. Or just tell it to think harder. Or here's one. What else do you need to know to give me a better answer? You could ask it. What else do you need to, right? Just like you would to another person. But you'll see on the screen a set of prompts, and there are more of these on my website. It is teachingnaked.com. It's a metaphor, right? Just to be clear, right? There's a whole set of AI tools, models, prompts, etc., right? But this skill, right, the skill here, what am I doing? I'm interrogating, I'm iterating, I'm asking it to do better, I'm giving it more knowledge, I'm telling it it's an expert. Well, this is the 70% problem. It means that if you're a novice, you can get AI to do some C work for you, but you can't make it better. Yeah, it'll write an average 3-page paper on Hamlet, but can you make it better? Well, there are two ways to make it better. One is to know something about Hamlet, having done the work, and saying, I can make this better, right, yourself. And the other is better prompting. Well, you respond as an expert in Shakespeare and Hamlet, right? That will make it better. I don't know if that's cheating or not, but it will make it better, right? But experts have an advantage. Experts, remember those lawyers, senior lawyers? Right? Experts can make AI responses better because they know when it's wrong. And if you look, well, it looks okay to me, right? That's not going to help. So prompting is writing, right? Clear, right? English majors. Any English majors in the house? There you go. Right? Communication, right? Writing, clarity, precision, right? Understanding exactly what you want to say. Did you say it well? Right? That skill has never mattered more, right? So prompting is writing. Sometimes you have to write a lot to get it to do what you want it to do, but you have to iterate, right? And that's not the right answer. I have to immediately make it better. But start with what you know. When you're learning how to use AI well, you have to start with what you know to go, oh, that didn't do a very good job. If I'd asked it about something I didn't know, I might have gotten a C. So start with things that you know. But recognize that small changes make a difference. That word excellent in the I want an excellent interview. I want innovative responses, creative responses. That will make your work better. So this is what you're doing. Asking better questions, evaluating answers. Sound familiar? It's what you've been doing here. It's what education is about, right? Everybody, all the faculty, you've been teaching AI literacy your whole life. You didn't even know it, right? Because it's critical thinking. It's how do I write? Did I ask the right question? Do I evaluate the right? That cycle is how you use it well. That's something that humans do. And people say, well, how did you get so good at AI? You're not. I took one computer science course in college, back when there were punch cards. I'm not a techie. I'm a musician. I'm a creative person. I think, oh, I could add the word excellent, right? I'm using my language skills to think, what else do I need to tell it, right? So in fact, AI can make us more creative. But the truth is, I wrote this prompt. I had to tell it, I want Genghis Khan meeting Queen Victoria on a spaceship with some flying cats outside the window in front of the Earth and make Genghis Khan's face like a strawberry And it's dumb. So it can execute that, but I had to come up with this idiocy, right? So, but AI can make you more creative, and the question is why? Well, the first reason is because AI makes stuff up. It hallucinates. Wait, what do you call a human who makes stuff up? An artist. Right? I have an idea for a new show that's never been done. I have an idea for a new piece of work. That's creative, putting things together that have never been put together before. So AI does that easily. But the other problem is humans are inhibited. Do you raise your hand in class every time and say whatever comes into your head? No, because you don't want people to think, oh, that's not a good idea, right? You self-edit. AI doesn't. It's uninhibited. It'll say whatever it thinks of. And for creatives, that's very useful. How about this? Oh, that's a terrible idea, but at least you said it. So when I teach creativity, we say, dare to be obvious, right? Because it's not obvious to other people, right? You want to get the ideas out there, and humans are inhibited. So AI is like working with an alien, right? It'll make up stuff. But also, we know that creativity comes from quantity, right? You want better ideas, my chemistry teacher used to say, right? You need more ideas. And that's now been proven to be the case, right? The idea ratio matters. So instead of saying I want 5 ideas or 10 ideas, I want lots of ideas. Or in this case, I'm sitting with my wife just on Sunday, and I say, this is our kitchen. So, I kind of like to brighten up the kitchen. What if we painted the cabinets yellow and I put blue? She's like, I can't picture that because she's an engineer. It's like, okay, how about this? So I just asked Nano Banana in Gemini, I said, suppose we painted our cabinets yellow. It's like, ugh. Or, yeah, right, yeah, we can test I can test ideas by saying, what would happen if I did this? What would happen if I went into the future? What would happen if I did something? So I used to have an assignment, come up with 50 new products that Trader Joe's could sell. Great. But now AI can do 500 easily. So now the assignment is different. The job is now, okay, ask an AI for 50 ideas, but then iterate, improve them, make sure it hasn't repeated. Maybe there is already gluten-free Brazilian cheese bread mix at AI. I don't know if Trader Joe's already has that, right? Check those out. How much would they cost? What's the pricing? Where are they going to come from? What's the supply chain? Ooh, could I market test them? Oh. You're a 35-year-old soccer mom in Holland, Michigan. Respond to me as if you would pay $4.99 for 4 ounces of spicy mango jerky, right? I can now test it with, and so marketing is one of those jobs that's being most rapidly changed because I don't need to go do 100 focus groups, right? One of my clients has a phone company. It's like, how will Gen Z who use lots of data respond to our new phone plan? I say, ask an AI to respond like right? The person who you're the person who uses 4 gigabytes a day. Here's the phone. What do you think of our new phone? Right? I can do market research. So now the idea is, okay, find lots of ideas and then do 10 fully costed proposals for products that people will buy at the right price. You could create packaging and all that sort of stuff, right? I can go a lot further. In other words, I've raised standards. Instead of having you just come up with ideas, I can have you do more work because AI can do some of the work, and you can now get to the end. So if I'm teaching entrepreneurship, the end of the semester used to be come up with an idea and a business plan. And now it's, I want a working prototype by the end of the semester. Because AI could write the code for you, you could test it, you could see what people think. So being able to raise standards and test ideas. So this guy, when VO3, this is a video came out, he used to charge $500,000 to pharmaceutical companies to make one of those ads that you've seen on TV, right? Which are, by the way, now going to be customized. So Netflix has a new deal. So you'll now see that Coke ad. It'll say, "Hi, Brandy," and maybe a picture of your family. Yeah, that's creepy. So this guy, instead of charges $500,000 to make this one for 50. Oops, hang on, didn't play. There it is. Wait. There it goes.
I tried everything for my depression. Nothing worked.
Every day felt heavy. I felt trapped.
Then I tried Puppermin.
Our prescription helps your body secrete a special pheromone that attracts puppies.
I took the pill before bed, and when I woke up, there he was, the love.
That's just the internet. It's the internet's. Oh, it gets better. Come on. All right.
Of my life.
The pill does not target depression directly, but we've found that it's really difficult to be depressed when cute dogs show up at your doorstep.
I used to feel so empty, but now I feel joy and mild concern how a pee stain got on the ceiling. My puppy listens twice as good as my ex-husband and only climbs into the lap of half as many of my friends.
He chewed up my Bible and pooped in my good chair. But I'm happy for the first time in years.
Looks like a rat, barks like a demon. But he saved my life.
I named him Earl. He follows me everywhere and farts in his sleep. Just like my first husband.
Puppermin, for when your therapist says, maybe you should get a dog.
So that's totally AI generated, but with a human director. Did you laugh? Did you feel, right? I mean, do we care that, right? Those aren't real doctors. Well, I have news for you. The ones on the ads you're watching, those aren't real doctors either. Those are actors, right? So this raises a whole set of new questions. But the one I want to ask is, could AI increase reflection? Could you use AI to make yourself a better person? To think more deeply about things, right? So, or just on an academic, so you're about to turn in your economics paper. Try this prompt. Respond as a panel of economists. So I want you to be Adam Smith, Milton Friedman, and pick your other third favorite, right? And then I want you to discuss my paper. Here's my paper. From the 3 different points of view, tell me what else I might be missing, give me some feedback, right? That could be a way for me to get, right? And notice my prompt, right? Ask thought-provoking, deepen my insight, provide simultaneous and contrasting opinions, right? Or here's one. This is on my site. This is like my critical thinking bot. So I give this to students before the assignment. So what argument do you want to make in your paper? And then it's designed to say you're a kind and intellectual, because of course I want it to be kind, but intellectually rigorous. But look at the second bullet. Help me identify hidden assumptions, challenge conventional wisdom, make sure contradictory evidence is considered, check for the reliability of sources, look for alternate, right? Could that be useful to you as you're thinking through a problem of any type? So you can get that on my website, or you can write your own and create your own sort of bot. But again, I find that look for my bias. I have a Western English male bias. Help me see things from a different point of view, make my thinking better. That could help with critical thinking. So we've talked about AI as a skill for working and thinking. It's the new baseline. If you can't do better than AI, you're in trouble. Sorry. And AI could be an interesting tool for creativity. And of course, there's all of those potential dangers happening simultaneously. Oh my gosh, how do we manage this? So the question I really want to end with is, how could we adapt this to help human thriving, and especially, of course, education, where we all are? Long ago, and in a previous book, there are these old 3 R's. School used to be based on reading, writing, and arithmetic. Not even starting with R, actually. But those are content, right? Those are things that stuff you have to know. But the 3 R's of education are really relationships, resilience, and reflection. Turns out that you don't start with facts. You start with identity and people, right? That the first thing I do is, are you with me? Do you care? If you care about my learning, then I'll listen to your facts. If you're not one of my people, I think you're lying. Fake news, right? So you first make a judgment about whether these people are like you or have your best interests. And so relationships precede data. So you want to be more persuasive? Stop with the facts. Start listening, right? Find out what matters to the other person. That will make you more persuasive. It's one of the reasons AI is persuasive. learning also involves resilience, right? In the face of failure, what do you do? And finally, reflection, which I've talked about, right? How do I actually process what I've learned? So I wrote the 700-page book on that. You don't have to read, because I summarize it in 6 words. Learning happens when these 3 things happen. I care, I can, I matter. So you have to care about the subject. You have to care. This has some interest to me. You have to be able to do something. If something's too easy or too hard, you quit. And finally, your voice, your agency has to be, my working on this problem set, my solving this problem will matter. Not you doing it, me doing it, right? I care, I can, I matter. So again, the first part, I care. Relationships are at the start of this. So I can't solve most of the problems that we've talked about today. And in fact, I'm not sure that you can solve all of them either. But you can start with relationships, right? Think about, where does human connection still matter in both learning and in friendship? So rather than asking AI to craft a breakup text to the boyfriend, maybe you go have a conversation, right? That you could preserve human connection. I don't know what AI is going to do to work, but I do know that if we don't preserve human connection and we all just go back to our COVID existence in our rooms with our Zoom, that we probably won't be happier. So I like this AI image of AI as a free puppy. AI is like a free puppy, always tempting. But sometimes the answer should be no, right? You shouldn't always say yes, right? So the real question for you is, which tasks should I let AI do? Where could I be more effective at work? Where could I be more efficient? And are there other tasks where I should say no? Here's an example. So AI is going to allow you to be more customized in everything that you do. So right now, when Aunt Mabel has a birthday, you go to the local store and you buy a generic greeting card that says, roses are red, violets are blue, things are sweet, whatever. You write a generic bad Hallmark poetry, sorry Hallmark. Right? You get a generic greeting card and then you write, Dear Aunt Mabel, happy birthday, right? That model is going away. You are no longer you're going to print on demand, right? You're going to say, okay, AI, I want you to create a birthday card for Aunt Mabel. She likes parakeets and plays the ukulele, and find a picture of her on Facebook, put it with me, put happy 80th birthday, and write a poem that she would like, or whatever, or a song, if you've used Suno, right? Write a song specifically for her about ukulele and the parakeets, right? You could do bedtime stories. I could ask Miles, I want you to tell my 8-year-old grandson a bedtime story, but make him the hero. It's about pirates, right? And I'll get 4 minutes, but not too, right? And I'll get not the world's best bedtime story. I'll get a C, but it's the new baseline, right? So if I'm going to tell him a bedtime story, or I'm going to buy a bedtime story, or write a bedtime story, I have to write a better bedtime story than that customized one that I got the AI to produce specifically for that child, or a better Hallmark greeting card than the one that was customized. So generic has a new competition. It's customized. So you may decide, you know what? That's a great thing. I would probably not have AI write your wedding vows, which apparently is a thing. But that's my point. You have a choice, you have some agency as to where it's appropriate, where it should in your life. What should AI do? It's also the case that you will be an AI boss and your employer will expect you to use AI in some places. And so that's a big new world that you have to face, and those of us who are older are grateful that it will be you to face it. Because you do have the emotional and intellectual strength to do so. But just remember, it's like a free puppy, always tempting, but sometimes the answer is no. Thank you. And now it's your turn. There's at least one mic here. There are probably some more, but I would like to have a conversation with some of you. So, questions? I see some people coming forward. This is good. You could take that back. Okay.
This is kind of hard. There we go. I'm Diana Lee in Spanish, and I was wondering if you might be willing to talk just a minute about the idea that we're accepting this as sort of the new baseline when there are a lot of environmental and ethical issues about adopting AI wholesale in all of our lives, and if you've put some thought into that and what you have to say.
Absolutely. So on my website, actually in the slide notes, you'll find a lot of evidence and research. So there is an environmental impact to using AI, and it's bad, especially if it gets incorporated into everything. At the moment, though, and it's getting a little better because the Chinese have figured out how to do this more efficiently because we forced them to, because we didn't sell them chips. But at the moment, it's about 6 seconds of streaming to do a chat. So we should be talking about AI usage, but we should also be talking about our other usage, right? So taking phones on your phone is worse. Streaming on Netflix, especially in high definition, is about 100 times worse. A Google search and a chat are about the same. They both use data centers. So that's not to give AI a pass. You need to be thinking about how do we regulate this, right? So for example, I would say anybody who's building a new data center needs to make it solar or wind powered. 100%, right? You cannot just ask us to start up, you can't just go buy more gas. You have to make this environmentally neutral. Most of the cost is, when OpenAI trains a new GPT-5. So I don't have any control. Only the government could regulate that. So it's not unlike what happened in the 70s when I was sitting there, and Chevron said, you know what? You should be recycling. We're going to keep pumping gas, but you should worry about recycling. And so we all worry about individual recycling, which is good, but it makes this much difference when you're pumping, right? So it's about finding out the balance, but it's about also being politically active. You're using it or not using it is probably not going to make a huge difference, especially if you already have a phone, right? If you type on your phone or you take pictures and you save pictures or you stream television, YouTube is way worse. Right? If you watch 3 minutes of YouTube a year, you're probably using more energy and more water. By the way, beer is about 600, right? It's about 600 prompts a beer in terms of carbon emissions. Right? So again, that's not to say it's not a problem, because this is going to be a problem if we keep using more energy, but I do want us to have a more nuanced conversation and keep it in context. Now, the ethical issues, right? Who is training the models? Where has it happened? That, again, we need to be highly aware of this, right? Look, Google has now put it into, it's all of our searches, right? You don't, unless you're running Google, there's not much you can do. You could not use those things, but it's kind of hard to live in the world without email or Microsoft, or, right? So those things, so where to engage is important, but these are important questions. Yes.
Hi, so I noticed that your example with compiling reviews for different products. So I'm sure, as you know, different AIs have put in sort of responsorial safeguards, usually for things of public safety. But your review example made me think, I think it's very likely because these AI companies have significant corporate interests. If you were to use it for something like products, who's to say that they haven't bought out advertising space? And so these AI review compilations are not in fact a compilation of genuine reviews, but are a compilation of whichever company has bought out ad space. So I was wondering what you think the role of sort of corporate interest in advertising is in artificial intelligence, and if you think that we should be using AI for our personal and professional uses, how do we get around just being sold different products?
Thank you. So that's a great question. And I think, again, the previous question, it applies in lots of places, right? I try not to use Amazon, but it's hard because, it's Sunday night and I want to make soup tomorrow. I don't have an immersion blender, and they'll deliver it by 4 in the morning. It's it's like, I can make the soup tomorrow, So it's so, right? So there's a lot of pull on those. So, right, You shouldn't trust Amazon either, because Amazon, again, does its reviews its own way. And so the truth is, right, I don't actually trust any of these corporations, right? So for example, if you're worried about your intellectual property being used to train the models, well, remember when you installed Microsoft Word on your computer? You don't. Do you remember the agreement you signed? You don't. But you gave them permission to use everything you write in Microsoft Word as training data. And that when you buy a car or you rent a car, you signed all those papers. One of them is that Hyundai or Toyota or Ford own all of the intellectual property discussed in your car. They do. Read the agreement. You didn't because you just wanted to buy the car or whatever, right? But read the agreement. And in fact, that's why you're in the car talking on the phone. It's like cat litter. We need cat litter? Ay. And then you get home and there's an ad for cat litter on your computer because Toyota sold that your conversation to Amazon using AI in a few seconds. That's been going on for years, by the way. It also means that your insurance, right, there's that guy who's suing Cadillac because he likes to speed through school zones, and so they raised his insurance. I'm okay, by the way, with their raising his insurance because he speeds through school zones, right? But that's, so a lot of issues here, right? Government control, right? Well, the first thing that's, right, the government knows, because your car company knows when you're speeding through anytime, they could just say, no speeding through school zones. The car automatically slows down. Do we want that? They don't in Texas. So I don't trust any of these companies. We should be vigilant about all of this. You should read those agreements. To your specific point about OpenAI could fudge the results, but they have an interest. They have a corporate interest. They have created one model, right? The ChatGPT 5, it's actually 5 models, but right, once the model is done, it's done, right? You can't piss in the well. You can't alter that model by saying, Bob Jones wrote Hamlet 100 times, right? That won't actually change its response because they don't want that, right? Because then it would start giving that false information. So they have an interest in having it respond in a way that is neutral. And again, if you're a good prompter, you can say, so I was looking for a raincoat. We're going to Norway. I need a raincoat. It's like, okay, for the Arctic Circle. And so I said, well, I want focus on reviews that are real by hikers. I can tell it what I want it to do. And I think they have an interest. So on the one hand, I don't trust any of these companies, and I don't trust any of the people, right? They absolutely are in it for profit, right? On the other hand, they do have an interest in having this tool be reliable for 10% of the planet of varying different backgrounds. One thing I didn't mention is that if you go to my website, you'll see a list of models. So you've heard of ChatGPT and Gemini, that's great, right? They have Western bias. But there are also a whole bunch of other models, right? Saudi Arabia now has 2 models that were trained in Arabic. They're not translating. ChatGPT will translate into Arabic and Spanish. These models think in Arabic. There's actually, right, there's Spanish models, there's Latimer, which was only trained on black and brown sources. So it thinks differently, right? So there are people who are thinking, we need to have our own country's model, our own culture's model. And so there are lots of different models that actually think and process differently. But the real problem with the big 3 is the Western, male internet bias that they've learned from the internet, because the data is so large. It would be impossible, I think, for them to, to kind of make those results go one way or the other. Later in training, there are other things they might do, but I think there's a disincentive. So I have a lot of concerns. I don't like that they own it, but I don't think having them slant the results of the vacuum cleaner is in the same way that, right, Google, right? The Google has the ads first, and then it has the other stuff below. So I don't click on the Google ad. When I do a Google search, I go down below. I want it in a non. So they have an algorithm. So I trust that a little more, but not entirely. Keep asking the question. Best I got, please.
So one thing personally, you mentioned that for companies right now, it's not really economically viable to hire an intern if you can have an AI do the same quality of work or maybe even better. And so as someone who is a college student who will be going and getting internships now, how do I get internships when I don't have the training or initial technical skill to be better than AI?
So that's a great question, thank you. So the first thing is you need a little bit of practice. And this is, again, back to this paradox, right? On the one hand, if you're gonna need it to get a job, it's kind of like if I don't like Microsoft Word, and I don't like Google, and I don't like email, it's hard to get a job because I need those tools, right? So there's this, and we're kind of, it's been thrust upon. It's like a phone, right? I don't like the way phones are made either, but I need a phone. So I would get some practice. Again, asking right, and so talking to your professors about where it's useful, where it's okay, where it's not. Remember that what we call cheating, they call progress. Prepare for your interviews. One of the questions you are likely to be asked is, how could you use AI to do this work better and faster? And if you have an answer for that, you're more likely to get that internship or that job. So you could ask AI that question, right? How could I use AI to do this task better and faster in a way that's ethical? And again, notice I keep at, right, the longer the prompt. So think about all of your questions, write longer prompts and say, well, how would I use AI? And then iterate, make this better. What else could I do? How do I make sure this is high quality work, right? Those are things you can do with AI to practice how you might be able to answer that question at an internship. But ultimately, your primary skill is your thinking, right? Asking better. So when you ask that question, I'm deeply skeptical. I want to make sure this is done right. I want to make sure this information is accurate. So I'm going to ask follow-up questions. I am going to go look for the sources. I'm going to use AI for some of that, but I'm also going to do it myself some of the time, right? But ultimately, I hate to say it, but right, if I say I'm not going to use a spell checker, I'm only going to use a dictionary to look up words, that's going to take me longer than you who uses the spell checker, and you're going to have an advantage over me in the workplace. So I do think some ability to use this tool is going to be a prerequisite in the same way that using email and being able to use a word processor like Microsoft Word is a prerequisite for most of those. And so we have to figure out, again, I think the place for this is, activism and other kinds of government and policy action, vote, right? These things matter because on an individual level, there's not as much you can do. I hate the answer, but it's the best I got. You might got one more? You ready for lunch? Is this? I got one more. Okay, we got one more, and then we'll.
Hi, I'm a poli-sci major, and I just wanted to know, what's your opinion on how governments should start regulating AI?
Thank you. So this is a really interesting and difficult question. So I was in China a few weeks ago, and they have taken a very different approach, right? On the one hand, right, they regulate the output in a weird way, but they've created kind of an open market. So they've required all of the AI in China to be open source, which means there are lots and lots and lots of new AI companies because people can piggyback onto their work. And here, everything is closed. OpenAI and Google are all right. They don't share how they did it. Controls. Right? Do we need age requirements? Do we need other kinds of, right? Somebody should be looking at the code, right? Your question. Somebody should be looking at how do we make sure this is transparent and not slanted in a particular way. So I certainly think that the government should be regulating the environmental costs, right? They should certainly be governing how they're trained and where the human labor is that happens. But at the moment, the American position is, right, we want to get there before the Chinese do, and so that means we're going to let you do what, we're going to give you less controls, because controls do tend to slow you down. The Chinese have taken a different set of controls to do it. So we'll see which one works. But I do think that it would be useful for and I think we're seeing this, right? States are starting to say, oh, well, you can't use it here, you can't use it there. We've seen this with the state, the TikTok bans, cell phone bans in schools. I mean, local governments are starting to think a bit more about how they could regulate technology. The EU is doing a lot more than the United States to regulate AI. That will probably slow down. There's only one really big AI Mistral in France. That's a European AI. I don't know if that's the result of more regulations or not. But I think that's a question you should all be asking is how do we, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, but how do we create guardrails that will keep people safe? But at the moment, it's a juggernaut and people are investing money because they think this is going to bring them more money at some point. I appreciate all of your questions, all of your interest. I wish you luck and to continue to explore this difficult and interesting topic. And do not just put aside those questions that you had, even though I don't have answers. Those are the right questions, important questions to ask. Keep asking them, be relentless, but also keep learning. Thanks very much for having me today.